Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention Podcast. Today, I am super pleased to have Jonathan Durr with me, co-founder of Foxbear Games. And Jonathan, you've been working on a lot of really awesome games for a long time. Before we delve into everything, though, I always like to ask, what's your story? How'd you get into games?
So let's see here. When I finished up college, I knew I wanted to do something where art and story kind of met. And I was looking for what I was going to do as my next step. And I looked in the newspaper to date myself and saw a tester position available at Tiburon, from EA, and they do Madden and sports games like that. So I applied there and got in as a tester and worked in QA for 4 years before transitioning into game design.
That's awesome. One of the few that worked their way up. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. And then you kind of progressed, did some time at THQ, Kabam, Foxnet, and now Foxbear. Tell me a little bit about Foxbear. How did that come about? Why did you guys decide to start a company?
So Wildlife, came to me with this incredible opportunity to almost have like a publisher sponsorship over our studio. Said, would you be interested in this and making a studio that you guys have kind of creative control over? We'll fund it and support you. And they've just been a tremendous partner over this last year as we're developing our first project.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of too many other companies doing that. I know I've seen Tencent do it with maybe like one or two kind of studios, but that's super awesome. So did they come in and kind of have certain games or genres or things that they were kind of, intrigued by, or did they just say, Jonathan, we love you, go make whatever games you want to make?
Yeah, I mean, they gave us a wide platform to play with, that kind of like, here's their Rolodex. They're not looking for hyper casual right now or some like real big games, gigantic 4X games that take huge teams 5 years to build, which aligns with me, and my skill set. And they've got a couple other studios going that are awesome. The guys that did Merge Dragons and The Sims, and the guys from Fire Monkeys have gotten some studios going, the Toon Blast guys. So we've got like a real impressive Rolodex of other studios that we're able to start sharing our ideas with and getting feedback from, and it'll be exciting to see how this journey continues.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, and feel free to share as much as you want, but I feel like a lot of game studios, especially mobile game studios these days, are just increasingly facing bigger and bigger challenges in terms of finding your blue ocean and the red ocean, what game is actually going to set it apart. And I've seen some good games that have just gotten killed in soft launch because, they weren't scalable or for whatever reason, the metrics weren't there. I'm curious, what's your kind of unique approach to thinking about new game ideas and, ultimately figuring out what's going to be our shot on goal?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I look at Kabam recently, right? And they're phenomenal. But they've put out a string here where it's like these amazing games. What was the one? Future Realm and Future Revolution, or those games that just are tremendous from a production quality. Didn't stick. So making games is hard. I think you just kind of take your best guess. Hopefully you've got some data to provide with it to support that there's an audience there that wants this thing, that you can scale it. These are smart people, that don't get it right sometimes for whatever reason. So I don't know, if you figure out how to make a success every go around, let us know.
Well, here's maybe a slightly different variant of that. You were kind of a key part of the Marvel Strike Force. I think anytime you're making a new game, especially kind of a bigger game, you've got to look at the features. And I think there's, always a certain set of features that players expect from a certain genre. but then usually there's some kind of changed or addition feature or something that solves a problem that they're facing, or, otherwise, why would they, come to your game?
Right.
So I'm curious, like, what was your guys' process when you were approaching Marvel Strike Force for figuring out which features to build and why?
Yeah. We had some real strong comps out there, with Heroes Charge and Galaxy of Heroes and other games in the hero collector genre. When looking at it, we were intimately familiar. I know you talk also a lot about like going out there and getting player feedback when you get going on stuff. So I had a fun time trying to track down different players that were, elite players, and whether it was Star Wars or Heroes Charge or Summoners War. I got my exposure to them by finding content creators that were part of these top alliances and asking them if they could, make some contacts for me with the players in their alliances, and then just kind of interviewed them one-on-one, like, what is it that you love about this game? What keeps you coming back? What interests you? What problems are you having? Kind of like you said. So that helped, but that didn't create what we made. We had assumptions, and I think for me, it more tested that my assumptions were right or wrong on some things. And then we were off to the races on that part. For the features, I like to look at it as like, what is each feature going to provide that's a unique experience? So I want to have a PvP mode in there. I want to have a PvE mode. I want to have an alliance versus environment mode and alliance versus alliance mode. And if anything starts duplicating that, what new is added into it? Is it going to do something that helps drive retention, or for us, one of our big KPIs was regularity, getting players to play every day and thinking about it like that. So how do these different features help contribute to regularity and get me something excited to show up for every day?
So I've got a lot of questions I'm going to come back to, but I've honestly never heard of regularity before as like a metric that people track. How is that different in terms of like regularity versus retention, or how does that focus work?
Yeah, so regularity is, like I said, it's a metric of once you get a player to show up 7 consecutive days, they're now a regular. And in theory, if they show up 7 consecutive days, if you start looking at your data, they've got like a 98% chance of showing up the next day. If they only show up 4 of 7 days, there's kind of a 50% chance that they'll show up the next day. And when you start diving into it, regulars are what really makes up like 70 to 80% probably of your business and your revenue, the people that just love the game, love showing up every day. So being able to look at a game through the eyes of regulars, I think it does a couple of things. One, you get kind of a philosophical way of thinking about your designs. It's not so much how do I get this person to show up on day 7, but more how do I get them to show up every day? What experiences are we going to offer? What's those chases going to be that breadcrumb them through? Social's a big part of that, I think, as you know, just from retention side. But the other part that's really useful with understanding regularity is it's useful from a data side. It removes a lot of the noise. So let's say you've got a new release with a big feature that's coming out, and all of a sudden your metrics start dropping a bit. There's so many things that contribute to that. What's happening with UA is a big one, right? If you look at it just through the eyes of regulars and you filter out to that group, these are players that have already been playing your game all the time. They're bought in. Did their numbers go up or down? And that gives you a bit of a better perspective on what's happening with your game.
That's really great.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So digging into that a little bit, you've got your regular players. Have you ever encountered instances where different groups of regular players play the game vastly differently? And let me give you an example. One of my good buddies, he was working on kind of casual mobile games, mostly geared towards women and stuff. But they ended up coming up with 2 personas because they saw vastly different play style in their game. And I'm going to get these very wrong, so nobody get offended here. The first one was like called Schizophrenic Nancy. And they kind of put her in the bucket of like, she's just very busy, all this stuff going on in life. And whenever she can, she wants me time. And her me time is she pulls out her game and she's get maybe like 2 or 3 minutes to like play through a level, like enjoy as much as she can. And then she's, back to the races. And then, I don't even remember the other one, but it was like planned out Susie. And Susie would like plan out her day. She wouldn't touch the game until 7 p.m. at night. And then she sits down on the couch and she's got an hour or 2 hours like blocked off. And that's like just her playing style. And so they kind of had this issue where, okay, we have to make sure that this fun game is super fun and super engaging and all these, 2-3 minute bursts throughout the day. And we also have to make it fun and engaging and playable for a full 2 hours straight. Even though both of those players might be playing the same amount of total gameplay that day, it's, a very different experience depending on what you're doing. So I'm curious, like when you think about regulars, have you ever encountered, issues where the players are playing vastly differently like that?
I think that's true. We could see typically more is more. The more somebody plays, the more they love the game, the more they're sticking around and just engage with it. And so you offer up, kind of whatever that upper limit of content is, knowing that they're going to devour everything that you put forth. And then you've got a question to wrestle with, like, how much is too much? Is there too much time? I don't know on that one. You'll get a lot of complaints if people, especially, as you get 2-3 years into a game, this game kind of is taking up all my time. But is the problem really time investment on that one? Or is it that you're not offering up enough new content or new experiences? So the experience that they did love because they were playing it for 3 hours is now starting to get a little stale and they want something freshened up. I think it's usually that one. But changing that and not breaking your game is a challenge in of itself too. But I think if you were to pull back on time, that would probably be a worse thing. As far as like, the different players though, we didn't see too much. I haven't seen too much. I'm sure they're there. Obviously there's people that like want to engage in alliances and those that don't, but I kind of went after what I thought was our core audience and designed an experience around them, and others that wanted to kind of pick into that experience could do so optionally. And they'll have a good time. They won't be super competitive at the end of the day. And I'm not sure when they were looking at that, is that a competitive player that's more, in and out for 15 minutes versus the one that plays, a 2-hour block. I don't know. But I think if you design for that competitive player, the other ones, they're just enjoying a good time, will probably have fun and stick around. And that's the experience that they want too.
Yeah. So when you guys approach a game, do you think it's best to, let's say, go and talk to these elite players and design a game with, maybe you get their different opinions, but you kind of group them together, maybe create a persona? And is that the person that you kind of design the game for, or do you try to think beyond that?
So I like this idea of players have time or money, right? And if you imagine a grid like that, there's time on one side and money on the other side. And this quadrant is time and money, and this side is neither time or money. And looking at it through that lens, I'd recommend you just lop off the side without time and money. That's not your audience. Like they're just opting out of the experience. So trying to make those players happy and like your game is going to be an uphill battle. They've already decided, this isn't for them. So then if you look at the other two vectors, at the end of the day, the people that have both time and money are the ones that are going to be the most competitive and when they really love your game and are all in on that. And then the people that have time or money, they kind of do equally well, depending on, how hard they go in either vector. So I kind of look at it through that lens. And like I said, know kind of that upper limit of what the most somebody can do just as far as getting through your content goes. Design with that in mind, really big tent poles, so they're not just blowing through that content, and then go from there.
Yeah. So thinking about this kind of longer term game design, and we'll loop back a little bit here because you said some interesting things. I've seen a lot of games that, how would I say, they do really well for, let's say, 2, maybe 3 years, and then they seem to kind of sputter out. And I think if you really pull back the curtain and you dive down into those, in many cases, I think when they were designing them or rolling them out, I don't know if they were in a hurry or whatnot, but they really didn't think too much beyond what meaningful goals are these players going to have 3 years out and 5 years out and 10 years out. And, most games haven't been, nearly as successful as Marvel Strike Force. So what approach did you guys take to designing? And, in some cases, you're not going to know what the game looks like 3 years from now, right? But you could at least have a rough roadmap of some of the things that you could add in so that you continue to have these meaningful goals. Like maybe you just launched the game with, swords having damage, but that in 3 years, we're going to start to add in, elemental modifiers and crit chance and, some of this other things. We have a rough roadmap of how we can continue to extend it. So I'm just kind of curious if, does my question make any sense?
Yeah, no, totally. So I remember going back into soft launch. We didn't have arena in the game at soft launch as we were testing out. We had a different PvP that we called Blitz that's in the game. And that was kind of like an uncapped engagement. You could pretty much play that as much as you want, kind of like Clash Royale's, battling system.
Yep.
But it was interesting. Some of the immediate feedback that we got back from those elite players that we got to try out the game from competitors were like, where's arena? Where's I got 2-3 matches a day. Am I the strongest to measure myself against? And like, that was pretty eye-opening. It's like, they don't want to grind for 20 hours to be the best at this. They want to level up their team, go smash somebody in the face and take their spot. And that's success, right? Which makes a lot of sense. So, you're getting some of that feedback. The other thing that I really got a kick out of was talking to guys from like Contest or other games about what their elder content was like. And we came up with the idea, a mode called Dark Dimension in our game based on those conversations, where it's just the end game chase. There's some really good characters or strong rewards, and it's really, really hard content that you're gonna have to grind through. You have to get really strong to get there, and then you have to grind through it to complete it all. And it gives you kind of that North Star. All right, this is my objective, and then when I complete that, I'll feel a sense of completion from doing it. And that becomes challenging too, because once the players do beat it, they're like, well, what's next for us? So you get on that content treadmill, but that's all right. Like that means you got a success and it's working. But I love that feature just as far as like, yep, you're doing all this stuff and your goal to do it is to complete the Dark Dimension run. And then we have to keep putting out new Dark Dimension runs, giving you new harder challenges, chases to go after. The other part that I think really, really helps with this is any type of social alliance type feature where my alliance is having to fight stronger opponents. And my obligation to the team is to keep up with them and fulfill my end of the bargain, so that we're all winning together. Things like AVA modes, alliance versus alliance modes. So you're getting matched up with equally strong alliances help to not have to create a bunch of content. You create the system, and then strong alliances, as long as they keep getting stronger, are going to get matched up with each other. So you always have something to strive for. Are we getting the latest content? Are we leveling up our guys so that we can be the best in these modes? And that'll keep players engaged for quite a while as well, I think.
Yeah, that's really great. So I've been playing and thinking about Magic the Gathering, the Arena, a lot lately. And so, I think Magic is one of the longest run games out there forever. And I read an interesting article which kind of said one of the main core drivers of the reason is they have so much content. And the way that they ultimately decided to keep content new and fresh and give people reasons to buy new packs is they implemented this, every 3 months they release a new deck. and then they retire one of the old decks. And so, every 3 months, the meta is effectively changing, encouraging players to buy new content or whatever. And you don't have to buy it. You can, grind through it and things like that, but you also might buy it. So it gives them a fresh monetization, but it also changes up the meta, fairly often. And I'm curious for, some of these longer run mobile games, like, do you think that implementing something like that, where it's like a drastic change to the meta on a consistent basis, actually makes sense, where it is a lot of content to produce, say, but like in Clash Royale, I think one of the core reasons why I've seen that game go down from a monetization standpoint is you don't really have any reason to level up more than one deck. And once you get your deck all the way kind of leveled up, well, it's like, well, I could play this other deck, but I'm so far below, like I'm punished for doing so. Whereas like if the content was maybe a little bit easier to accrue, faster to level up, but it changed every 3 months, there'd be more of a cadence, and maybe cards come back, maybe they go away. You're always having to really think strategically of how do I create the best possible deck with this in the context of Marvel of Champions. Oh, those heroes disappeared. Now here are the ones that are left, or here's the new ones. Like, what's the best possible thing that I can do there? Like, do you think that kind of content treadmill could apply to other games to help extend their lifetimes? Just like, Magic has been around for years and years.
Yeah, that's, probably the $1 million question for long-term within the hero collector genre, is why do I, need to go get my second squad, my third squad, my 100th character? What value are they bringing into it? And so for us with War, you needed, I forget what it was, but like 20 squads in order to fulfill your defense as well as your offense for that. We, discuss and you think about like that balancing thing that you're talking about with Magic, and we've seen it with some other games. I think one of the things to consider is if you're a player in that and you've dropped, several $100s or more on a character and leveling them up, how are you going to perceive them now nerfing that character or retiring that character? Are you going to be just as likely to go and invest in the next one that comes out if it's going to get kind of taken away from you? It's something to consider. I think there's probably a lot of different ways to make successful games. Magic the Gathering is tremendously successful, right? But yeah, I think you need to, like, they don't have that investment in the cards after you've acquired it, right? It's just a one and done deal. So maybe that works better with that type of setup than, having to chase end game gear that you keep creating new content for. There might be a way to pull it off, but that's something to think about. Maybe it's for one mode, that's one of the main competitive modes, it does that, but for another real strong competitive mode, it doesn't have the seasonality.
And they have that in Magic too, and they've got, historic, so you can play your old cards and whatnot too. So
yeah, I would say that's probably the thing to watch out for with it. But it's definitely tempting. And the, like you said, the challenge becomes why, 3, 4, 5 years in, why do I have to keep getting the new characters? What are they doing for me that the previous ones didn't do?
Yeah. So on that note, let's talk about LiveOps for kind of long run games. So, you've got your game 2-3 years in, and maybe the core experience is starting to get a little stale for your players and you need to come up with something new. Like, have you ever encountered that? And if so, how did you handle it? What did you guys end up, coming up with? How did you change things?
Yeah, we put together what we call it is like running the show, right? And it all goes back to regularity. But if you imagine that you're running a TV station, how am I providing players with awesome experiences, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we would check that we've got something new coming into the game every day, whether it was new events running, new characters being released, new offers, new even inbox messages, like whatever. We just wanted something new that you hadn't seen the day before in the game. And I think one of the things that teams that have now kind of gone through multiple years of LiveOps will need to solve is how do you make that sustainable for the team? Because you're pushing out a lot of content on a regular basis. Stuff's getting broken. You're granting back compensation to the player base, which takes more time to do that. So it's, how do you pull off this, making the players happy while also sustaining the team and making the team keep their sanity together during all of that. And that I think is something that all teams are probably struggling with, and something I think we should do more knowledge sharing about of what's working on that side for sustainability of the developers. What was the question? I lost it there a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, first off, I love that problem, because that's one of the main things we talk about a lot on UserWise, of how do we, improve the user experience of setting up all these things, because it can be very time consuming. Anyway, core question. What was the core question?
It was LiveOps. It was LiveOps.
Yeah, it was LiveOps. It was LiveOps. How do you think about changing the gameplay or adding something like significantly new and different, or more of the same but different, to players, so that once that gameplay starts to get stale, and it always starts to get stale at some point, how do you think about changing that, or how have you done that successfully?
I think you ideally are hopefully trying to get out something big once or twice a year that is a real new experience. A year after we launched Strike Force, we had War come out, so that's a big thing to look forward to. If you can get that on your roadmap, that's awesome. Offering them new challenges. From there, you probably have a few big beats throughout the year of different kind of tentpole events that happen that get players excited, and there's some predictability. I'm a big wrestling fan, and so if you think about kind of like wrestling pay-per-views, right? Every year there's WrestleMania, which a lot of people know about, and it's a big deal thing. And then from there's like 2 or 3 other big pay-per-views that fans are aware of. You always watch SummerSlam, and then there's kind of your third tier events, and then the daily stuff. And I think that type of pacing is pretty good for players. They want something new and exciting, like really big, at least once a year. And then some other real big moments to look forward to, and then the lesser beats that just kind of keep things shaken up. So we'll do, a milestone event where you're just grinding for a certain currency or something like that. And then you get rewards based off of how you did in that event. And then you put in a new event that's, maybe a different map in a raid or something like that. That's getting people to puzzle solve a little bit differently. And then you have a big new feature that hopefully the players love on that side.
That's interesting. Yeah. When you think about designing out your LiveOps calendar and such, especially in relation to these big things that are coming out, do you find that it's successful or useful to kind of communicate to players that, hey, this big change is coming? Or do you try to put like ebb and flow into your calendar? So you talked about burnout a little bit, like, this big new thing coming out, chances are players are going to engage in it a lot. And then do you try to like limit the new challenges and things that come out for a little bit, so that they're not feeling like, oh, I have to spend my entire life in this game?
Yeah, I think so. Again, it's one of those difficult things where more is more. So the more content you put out there, there will be some dissatisfaction from the players, but there's that, who knows how big that percentage of the audience is versus the silent majority that's just devouring it and having a good time. It's a bigger deal, I think, again, from the team standpoint and their pacing of having to create all that content and get it out burning wise. Plus you have the overall economy to consider, right? If you're going hard with a lot of different big events, then you're blowing through your economy even at a faster rate. So is it sustainable from that side too? Another thing to think about. But yeah, we generally, try and have something maybe once, twice a month. That's a smaller beat, and then something every 3 months. It's a bit bigger on that side, which seemed to work well, both from an overall economy standpoint and the pacing on both the players and the developers.
Yeah.
The other thing so you talked about like mentioning it to the players. We would do like 2 times a year, a roadmap presentation to players, just saying like, here are the features that we're working on. Here are some of the top bugs we're working on to give them a bit of insight, because they're playing the game, they love the game, they have their pain points with it, and just reinforcing like these are the things that are on our radar, lets them know that that's a concern for you and that you're working through it. So I think that's helpful as well.
That's great. So one of my first podcast guests ever, Javier Barnes, was talking about the process they used in Monster Legends, where he found that one of the best ways to get player feedback was, he said, hey, every day, Friday at 1 p.m., I'm gonna be on Discord for an hour. You can come talk with me. And he kind of invited all the top guilds or guild leaders or whatnot. And it was really nice for those players because they didn't have to send some ticket or nebulously like not knowing if somebody's going to look at it or whatnot. They knew, hey, Friday at this time, if I log in there, I can actually talk to the developer and, share my thoughts, my concerns and feedback directly. And he ended up creating this like really engaged group of players. And they actually became really avid like QA testers and stuff too. So they, released new cards that had new mechanics and stuff. And often these players would catch like bugs or random things that they, had no idea about. It's like, oh, well, actually there's this card from way back that's just going to completely counter this thing and make it useless. Or, this thing needs to change in XYZ manner. And he found that having that group of player feedback was like super essential in terms of LiveOps of the new content that they were creating. Did you ever do that with the existing players? Like, I know you talked about going out to like other players of other games and stuff. Did you guys do that with your, clan leaders or whatnot?
We did that for our big features many times. And that was really valuable. And, making some adjustments, finding out where some of the pain points were, solving those ahead of the releases. Is this something that they like? Is it working in those areas? The challenge on like kind of your day-to-day show and the smaller events is you're moving through that content so quickly. Like, you don't really have time to get it into test for a long time and get the next thing out. Just from a practicality standpoint, it'd be awesome if you could work that far ahead. If anybody's doing that, I'd be really curious, see if they're able to do that and have people test it before going live. So yeah, with the bigger features for sure. And then yeah.
All right, so let's flip that on its head. I think sometimes when you're talking to players or people in general, survey questions, very difficult to write in a way that doesn't influence the answers. And, anytime you're talking to a small subset of players, you might get biased answers that doesn't actually reflect anything. Have you ever, listened to player feedback or asked questions or dug in and gone down the wrong road or made the wrong decisions?
Yes. I think what happens there is you get feedback. I think a common one is the pinch is too tight or something along those lines. The mode's fun, but I don't think the rewards are rewarding enough. And then you start adjusting that to meet that need. And then it starts hurting the game, right? And the players from a retention standpoint, because now they're completing whatever that chase is faster. There's not the next thing lined up. And you're like, oh man, now we've got to tighten it up after it's been exposed as looser. Or you got to come up with the next thing, which is doubly hard. Figuring out what the next chase is if you've now flooded the game because of trying to act on that feedback. So I think that's probably the biggest thing to watch out for. There's definitely a tricky balance with free to play from that reward standpoint of, I feel like I'm making progression and I'm having fun on the game that I'm playing versus I'm getting everything that I want right now, which is what I'm kind of screaming about. I want to either buy it or just give it to me from from a bit of engagement. So you've got to dial that knob, pretty well to sustain both sides.
Yeah. Do you have any tips or tricks on ways to fight or avoid doing that? Like using machinations or an Excel spreadsheet to model out like, hey, I want players to play this 1,000 times before they get to something. And you can actually model out the general economy.
Yeah, I typically use Excel. I know machinations is a thing out there. I'm not too versed up on it, but I'll use Excel. I'll start with big numbers because they're easier to pull down again than going the other way. Like, I know people right now are upset about Diablo, right? And they can't get the end game crest. When I had a very different reaction when I started playing Diablo, I'm like, I want to spend some money in this game and I don't know what to buy.
It's so under monetized. I don't know why people are like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But and then I understand that there's some concern around these end game chases and rewards. And for me, it's like, that's great. Blizzard now has a reward that they'll be able to dole out through LiveOps events that has a lot of value and excitement for the players. What you see week 1 is not what you're going to see 3 months into the game. They'll be doing other stuff as they start getting their baseline on it. So I think you start really high with your numbers. You can pull back, make exciting content to give players for LiveOps events, so their time is even more valuable when they play those. Mm-hmm. And that's about it. Like I look for that length, and then the other thing is you got to play it, right? So you might have thought that 1 gem every 50 hours was fine on paper, and then you play and you go, well, that was a terrible experience. I need to juice this a little bit more.
It's where I've heard that from many game economists. Always play the build.
It's amazing how few people play the build in development. And I think if there was one thing I could offer up to anybody is play your builds in development before they go live. You'll learn so much about it, and you'll be a better contributor to the team, knowing like how the things coming together and what the friction areas are from that experience, and share really good insights with everybody.
Do you find, thinking about LiveOps a little bit and continuing to add new content and stuff, have you ever ran into issues where you've negatively impacted the new player experience because there's just so much for them to learn, or they're encountering things maybe before they should, and it's, kind of wasting all that UA spend because people are like, oh, what's going on? And they just kind of churn.
Trying to think. We were very conscious of what that early experience was, and to not mess with it. And I think actually to the detriment, you actually want to go back and re-look at that, especially after a few years being out. How do we, the road to get to the end of the game now is doubled, tripled. We can be making that beginning part much more exciting and much more rewarding by giving players a lot more progression early on. You're going to have to test it and see that they retain just as well. They should, but you need to go back and look at some of those early experiences and see if you have room to improve the overall game. But we were pretty protective of that and not releasing new stuff until further on. And then we'd check it to see, did those moments impact KPIs negatively. One of the features that I thought was going to do really well, that I was really excited about, was getting real-time competition in for elder players. We tried that out. It's still going. I think there's still room there as people are looking at improving the game and making that a better, more integrated experience. We took a swing that didn't quite work, and those moments are going to happen. And you look at it and go, did it break the game? Do we have something to learn from? And you kind of pick your next path from that.
Yeah, I remember one time I was working on a game, and I don't know how this oversight happened. They'd change something in the store otherwise, but suddenly what they needed for the new player experience was no longer available. And in order to progress, the players actually had to make a hard purchase, like, I kid you not, like 30 seconds into the game. And revenue on new players actually skyrocketed because, I mean, retention tanked because most people just were like, well, I'm not doing this. But they're like, oh, yeah, we made this change and it's great for new players. And it took a few weeks before people were like, what's going on with our retention? So
yeah, I mean, that stuff's going to happen. And I think that's why it's really important to keep playing through that beginning flow too. Development, it's not just about where you're at the end, but kind of doing both. What's the late game experience? What's the new game experience? And you want to keep checking that funnel, every couple of months at the very least, see that you haven't introduced something negative there. Check your analytics all the time. If there's anything going on in the funnel that you can go back and try and address.
Yeah. And we're talking with a tester too originally. So yeah, this is great. Speaking of testing and LiveOps and things, have you ever seen any LiveOps events cause unforeseen issues? Like, I don't know, let's say you set up a reconversion campaign where you try to email a player or like show them an ad, trying to get them back, and you set up some very special stuff, but you also had your regular day-to-day LiveOps stuff set up and they ended up conflicting with each other in, unforeseen ways.
Not so much that I can recall. The biggest thing that I think every game works through on this LiveOps side is when you put out rewards or an offer that had a bug in it, had a couple zeros off, right? There was one point shortly after we went out where we did gold in the game, and gold is something that you always need. It's just evergreen as far as part of the in-game chase to develop your characters. And I forget what it was, but it was like the offer went out for $5 and it was $500 worth of gold for that, and a few people bought it. And so we had a decision to make of do we like somehow take that back from those players that spent that money? There's no way to refund them, and that gets tricky. So almost on a case-by-case basis, we'd look at it and go like, if we did something with this where we gave it out to all players or we made it a legitimate offer, would it break the game? And most of the time, no, it's not. If you have your tent poles deep enough. So we looked at it and went like, all right, let's make this right. We'll make it something exciting. And so this a massive amount of gold, we ended up like running a calendar for 30 days where we gave out, several $100s worth of gold during that period, and a few low cost offers. And between the two, you would net the amount of gold that those guys got for that price. So everybody could keep up if they wanted to, and it didn't kind of destroy the competition side. We didn't claw anything back, but we used it as a moment to make the game more exciting during that period. Another awesome moment was, I told you about Dark Dimension, the end game chase. When the first person to beat that challenge, kind of like Ready Player One, we really celebrate. They get their name in an environment. They get to pick 100 shards of any character to give out to the players. They pick other different events. And so with the first one, we were just about to release Captain Marvel. The movie had just come out and everything. They knew Captain Marvel was coming. And the player said, all right, well, I'd like to give out 100 shards of Captain Marvel to everybody. And it was like, oh man, we didn't, write the rules strict enough to omit that type of thing. We discussed it and we're like, you know what, let's go ahead and do it. So again, we put together a couple week long calendar where we ended up giving out the 100 shards. We honored, the person's wish for that. The community was blown away that we gave out this brand new character. And it all worked out all right at the end. And then we updated our rules next time we ran the event so that it was better to find which characters you could pick.
Yeah.
Those moments are really exciting. They get the community talking about like what's going to happen with this.
Yeah, and even though you gave out the content, the community probably actually loved the game all the more for it.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So I do want to talk, looping back a little bit again to feature development. So I think there's two challenges that I see a lot of games face, and we sort of covered on the first one, which is how do I figure out which game to make entirely altogether. And then there's this whole idea of feature development. So take like the battle pass. There's probably now thousands of different ways that the battle pass has been implemented. What is the right way, or should it even be done in the context of your game, to add a battle pass? What sort of values are you going to have? How do you analyze that? Figure out, which ones, you should do that. I think there's Sensor Tower and App Annie and other things like that to help you on the overall hierarchy of stuff. But at least I haven't seen anything that like breaks down of here's how this game implemented the feature, and here was like the performance and the reaction, player sentiment, XYZ after that, to iron in on, okay, for strategy games, here were the top 5 battle passes. So maybe I iron in on those and try to understand what's there. What's your general process for thinking up a new feature idea and then figuring out how to actually implement
it? I look at it from, what am I trying to improve? Right? Is this a thing where we're just trying to make a better overall experience that helps players out, improves the quality of the game? So something like save squads is a perfect thing for that, right? Like, I'm tired of managing my roster. I can save out my squads and I'm improving the quality of my experience. Is it something that's trying to drive regularity and retention, and I need to show up every day to engage with this? Maybe something that ties into alliances would be really good for that. Is it something you're trying to improve monetization with, battle pass or whatnot? So you're just going to start with maybe what the problem is that you're trying to solve, or what the thing is, the opportunity that is that you're trying to improve on. What's a new experience that you can offer up in the game? I find one of the things that we can do with mobile is really make exciting moments, both positively exciting and negatively exciting moments happen that get people talking and feel emotion about it. You look at unlocking a new character in a game, right? And you get the chest and it pops open and it's like, oh my gosh, I got the new character at 5 stars. And you see streamers just put out content like crazy on that, and how excited they are about those moments. Or even the offset, oh, I got another duplicate of this character, and kind of the whammy moment when you get a war going and you have that real close fight at the end of it, and are we going to win or are we going to lose, and the emotion that comes with that. So that's all to say, like, if you can figure out, like, are people going to be emotional about these features, and the excitement of winning or the excitement of losing, or what they're getting, I think that can go really strong to get people, to love your game more. And then, yeah, you're looking at whatever comps are out there, trying to see whatever data is provided. I think when we were dialing in our battle pass, I was just looking around, what's the price point that everybody's using? And again, if you start off too low at, like, let's say $5, it's hard to go back and retrofit that without making the players upset. So you take your best guess based on what's out there and what kind of price point you're seeing them spend at in the game currently, and try and land on that. You can iterate after you go live, but you got to be careful about that with players, because you've already kind of set some expectations. So can you completely rejigger it, and it's a new event that's tied to whatever those rewards are? And I think that's a bit more forgiving. Oh, it's a new experience. It's different than the one that they ran before, and so I don't have a direct comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some of the big things. Is like, why are you going after it? What new experience are you going to offer up? And again, for something like a hero collector, why do I need? How does this tie back to the characters and part of the core game loop, and make that a more interesting experience?
That's amazing. I can't believe we're pretty much out of time here, but we've probably got time for one last question. And because we are on the Mastering Retention podcast, I always like to ask, what's one tip or trick or lesson you've learned over the years to increase retention or regularity? How do you keep players coming back for longer, be that, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year?
Yeah. I go back to just kind of the notion of regularity and putting on a show. How are you going to do something new every day? With the biggest thing being social, and in a way where I need to fulfill an obligation with my alliance that only I can do. If I'm going to let you down, I'm going to be more inclined to stick around to honor our friendship in that way, and have more fun with the game because of those social bonds. So I think social, that I have to kind of do something with every day, every other day, is probably the biggest thing that I can think of.
I agree. You just described why I stuck around in Clash of Clans and Clash Royale for an extra few years. That responsibility to the guild. Love it. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today. If people do have any questions or want to learn more about, Foxbear or whatnot, is there a good way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm up on LinkedIn, Jonathan Durr. You can find me there and shoot me a message.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Cheers.